Hello and welcome back to Hardworking Man. Today we're going to take a little closer look at the Yakta YXR710 mower, and we're going to do the first oil change on it. Their whole platform is for this to be serviceable in the field, and they say you can do a toolless oil change. So we're going to see if we can change the oil on this thing, if it's fast, easy, and if you truly don't need any tools. We'll also touch on a couple of the features about this Yakta that we haven't touched on yet. So as we mentioned before, not only does the Yakta have a tow receiver or a hitch receiver in the back, it has one in the front too, and I'm going to show you where that's at. The front receiver is underneath this plate. So you can keep this plate on because it looks sweet, or if you need to use that receiver, or if you use it a lot, you can remove this plate and then you always have access to the front receiver. You can also use the front receiver for some of the mower jacks that you plug in to lift it to access the blades and underneath the mower. So let's get these two 14mm bolts out, remove this cover, and see what's underneath. So there's 2 bolts on top and 2 bolts on the bottom to remove this cover. So with the cover removed, you can see the front hitch receiver. What you can also see is the I-beam front end of this, which is modular. So if you do happen to damage this beast, because it's fast, and if you hit something solid, no matter how thick and heavy duty this is, it can be bent. But this can be replaced by removing these bolts, and you don't have to have a welder or someone to fix your mower if you do have an accident and smash up your front end. This heavy duty 3/8 thick modular I-beam can be removed and replaced, which is a really neat feature on this Yakta. So first we have to get access to the motor. I just pulled the air cleaner off and that's still clean. It's only at 8 hours, which is for the first oil change for this brand new Kawasaki engine. So you just have to loosen these. You don't even have to take them all the way off, just loosen them because they got cutouts here. So once both sides are loose, you can just slip this back cover off for easy access to the engine. And just like that, the back cover is removed and we got access to our engine to do our toolless oil change. So now with the Yakta warmed up to get the oil more fluid, we're going to take this drain line, which had a zip tie around it that was a little too tight. So I'll put a looser one because you want to leave this tied up when you're mowing. But we'll just pull this out the back and put the drain pan underneath so we can drain our oil. Now we just take the plug out, being careful not to drop it into our drain pan, and drop the drain plug and drain all of our oil out. I'll loosen this cap up just so there's not a vacuum in there and it'll start draining a little bit better. You can see that oil's pretty clean, but they recommend your first oil change at 8 or 9 hours, I believe it is. So we got our Yakta with the Kawasaki 781V Evo Series fuel injected engine. It's 31 horsepower, pushing a 61-inch deck. And like we've said in previous videos, this thing's built like a tank. And one thing Rachel and I both really like about it is how smooth it drives. Like, you don't have to make micro inputs to the controls. You just get it going and it just tracks really straight with very little input to the controls. It's really nice. The YXR710 comes with the Hydro Gear ZT 4400 transaxles with a nice big cooling fan on them. And they do whine a little bit compared to the separate hydraulic drive motors and hydraulic pumps. But these things are powerful, they're responsive, and they have really good reviews online. While we're waiting for the oil to drain, I'm just double checking the tire pressure. They should be at 14 PSI, and we were a little bit high, so I took a little bit out, which is going to improve the ride and the traction, like on the wet hills or in the softer ground. So taking a little bit out should give us a little nicer ride, even though this thing has a great ride. It's a nice, heavy machine, and it's got that 3-inch suspension seat that takes all the jarring motions out of it. Taking a quick look at the blades, these are still in really good shape, so I don't have to pull them off and sharpen them just yet. We'll probably get to them now in another 10 hours or so. Another thing this Yakta has is a way to disengage these hydraulic motors, because if you have to tow this, say you get stuck or something happens and it breaks down and you have to tow it out, you don't want to tow these mowers with the hydraulic motors engaged. So you're not going to be able to see it, but if you just reach down here by the fan, on each motor there's a lever that you can flip, and you just flip it 90 degrees, and that's going to disengage this transaxle or put it in neutral so it can be towed or pushed easily. Now, we get asked a lot about this Yakta because it's a brand new company, And a few awesome things about this mower. Yakta has a 5-year warranty that covers everything except for the battery, the mower blades, and the tires on this thing. That's pretty impressive. They've extended the Yakta warranty to the Kawasaki engine, to the Hydro Gear transaxles. You don't have to deal with separate companies, you just deal with Yakta. And if you have an issue and need a part, their goal is to get it to your door in 24 hours if it's something you can work on yourself. And they pay top shop rates at the dealerships so that if your Yakta's in on a warranty repair, they'll get it in before they will other brands that don't pay the top shop rates. They're prioritizing you, the customer, and that's awesome. Now, if you want to see more videos of one of these mowers getting put through the paces and another person's, I guess, view of this mower in this company, check out DOS Outdoors. We'll put a link down in the description of this video. They got a Yakta 710 just like us, and he puts that thing to the paces. He's mowing fields, he's running hills, he's doing all the stuff we do. They picked 2 YouTubers who are going to test this thing and not just baby it and not just show you all the pros, but we'll show you if there's any cons or things that don't work, or if we run into terrain it can't handle. So check that out, DOS Outdoors, for more Yakta videos. All right, in one of our last videos, we showed this high drain blower. This thing's awesome, and we've had a lot of comments on it, so I'm going to show you a little bit more about it. One thing I'm going to say real quick, though, is if you want one of these, I wouldn't recommend buying it off Amazon, because the one on Amazon has terrible reviews, and it appears as though it might not be a true high drain. I looked at it, it doesn't look like mine, and a lot of the reviews say it doesn't work at all and it's 3D printed garbage. I can tell you this high drain that I bought straight off their website is not garbage, it's not 3D printed. It's a pretty nice, heavyweight, and just a quality tool, you can tell. So a little bit about it before I blow off by the oil filter before I take it off. You can take this front piece off, so then you got a bigger blower motor. And this thing has pretty powerful air. And then there's a different rubber tips, like for if you're doing, I guess, more delicate work, you can put this rubber tip in. But I'm just going to use it to blow off around the oil filter. I use it to blow off the caps of my chainsaws when I'm cleaning my chainsaws out in the field. It's like a little air gun from your air compressor, but this is all it is. It's got a flashlight on the bottom in case you need a light sometime, or a strobe light if you want to have a seizure. So just a little, I guess, added feature, but this thing's pretty cool.
You want to have a seizure.
I will say though, I was gonna try it for like blowing off mowers, and it works okay, but if you get to a cupped area where there's a lot of grass and it has so much power, it blows that grass and it comes back up, it's sucking so much air in the back, it sucks the grass into the back of the blower. So that's one thing to be cognizant of. With small stuff, it's not an issue, but I have had it where I blasted so much grass and it blew up and sucked it back in that the motor stops and I had to clean it back out so I could use it. So be aware of that. So I'm just gonna stick this in here by the oil filter and just blast it with air to knock any dust or dirt around. So when I put the new filter on, it's not there to get caught in the new filter and straight into our clean oil. So if you're interested in that high drain blower, the Yakta mowers, check out the description of this video and the pinned comment, and we'll have links for 10% off on the high drain, and we'll have a link to the Yakta website so you can check out the different mowers they offer. Now that the oil's all drained, once this is tightened back on, we'll get it tucked back up by the oil fill cap, get the old oil filter off, the new one on, then fill it with oil. So now I push the oil drain pan all the way underneath, and I'll just reach in here and spin this filter off. You can hear the oil, there's a hole underneath it. So some of it's probably hitting the little brace under there, but most of it's getting through that hole and straight into the drain pan. So when you're changing your oil filter, one thing you always want to do, whether it's a vehicle, a lawnmower, anything, is make sure that this O-ring comes off on the oil filter. Because if this gets stuck to the engine and then you put the new filter on over it, you're pretty positively going to have a leak. And if you run it like that, you're going to blow your engine. So make sure that O-ring comes off on the old oil filter.
Is it off?
You can see the O-ring here. Now another thing you want to do is just take your finger and get some oil on it and rub it around your new seal before you put your oil filter on. And when you put these on, you don't have to crank them. You're just going to put it hand tight. No tools used to put the oil filter on, or the next person's going to hate you when they try to get it off. So I just reached in there and put this where the old filter was, and it immediately went right onto the threads, which is nice and pretty easy. So a little bit of hand tightening on there, and that oil filter is good to go. Now we'll fill it back up with oil.
And we zip tied that back on there.
Now when it comes to these machines, you spend a lot of money on them. Don't be cheap. Use the genuine Kawasaki filters, and I'm using the Kawasaki oil. You want the 4-stroke oil because this stuff has zinc in it. Your automotive oils don't. The zinc makes it a lot better for these engines. So 2 quarts of new oil into this thing. We'll let it run for a couple minutes, make sure there's no leaks, check the oil level, and we're done. No tools, quick and easy, and we're ready to rock again with the Yakta.
I think I could even do this after watching it.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. So when you're pouring oil in, you can just start to the side, and then once you get it going, you want to tip it like this, and that lets it breathe so it doesn't glug. A lot of people will try to spin it the other way because it seems like it makes sense, but this is how you want to pour your oil in so you don't get the glug, glug, and spill all over. I'm not sure if you could see that. So what I was saying is, people think when you're gonna pour oil, I see people do it all the time, they pour it like this, and when you do that, it doesn't breathe, and it's gonna glug, and you're gonna spill. I start sideways, and then you wanna rotate this side down, because it lets air get in, and it gives you a nice smooth pour. Replace your oil fill cap and your oil change is complete. All right, I'm gonna blow off these hydraulic reservoirs and open them up just to make sure the fluid's at the proper level. By blowing it off first, you don't get that dust into the hydraulic fluid. You can see it's right there at the bottom and it's nice and cold, so this is good to go. You don't want these hydraulic reservoirs overfilled because as it heats up, it's going to come into that reservoir. So now that it's not hot, you want it right there at the bottom. So there's fluid in there, but it's not over full. So you can see how that leaf popped up and got on the back.
A man and his blower, true love.
Love that thing. Now we'll just pull the oil pan out and put the engine cover back on. And like just picking up this engine cover, I noticed like it's heavy. This thing isn't light. They built everything about this machine heavy duty. Another nice thing about the Yakta, greaseless spindles. You don't have to grease this stuff. You don't have to grease the wheel spindles. It's all greaseless sealed bearings, and so far, granted we only have 8 hours on it, but it's held up great. We've mentioned this before, but it's fuel injected, so no choking. Turn the key on, wait a couple seconds. It's got a touch screen here that has built-in diagnostics. So if something's wrong with your engine, you can go to it and it'll tell you what's wrong. And it'll also tell you if you can keep mowing or if you need to shut it down to prevent further damage. What Yakta also did is they made it so that if this screen goes out, you can still start and run this mower with the key. You don't need the screen to be able to run the mower. So if you're out on a job and your LCD screen goes dead, you can still keep mowing. They'll send you a new screen, get it installed, and you're good to go. It's also very easy to see in the bright daylight. A few people were worried about that, but this thing is easy to see even with the sun beaming on it. You can change the brightness here in general settings. You can check your vehicle health, battery voltage, engine oil hours. This has your fuel gauge on it and your engine RPMs. You can see we're at 8.7 hours for our first oil change, and the PTO's only been engaged for 3.2 hours. So now with it on low, we're gonna fire it up. While it's running at a low idle, I'm going to get off and I'm going to check for any leaks. You want to check for leaks right away, and if you have one, shut it off and figure it out. We got no leaks, we'll let it run, get warm, and then we'll check the oil level, and then Rachel can jump on it and get some mowing done. Another thing I really like about this Yakta is they put rubber dampeners in the ROPS. So whether it's up or down, it's got tension on it and rubber shocks. So when you're hitting bumps, this thing isn't slamming around. and rattling and making all kinds of noise. I've been on some really nice mowers and the ROPS is just banging and rattling and it makes it sound like something's wrong. I really like that they got the dampeners built into this ROP so you don't have to hear it rattle. All right, the new filter's on, the new oil's in. We let it run for a little bit. So we're gonna pull the dipstick and wipe it off, put it back in, click it closed, pull it back out and check our level. We're up there in the safe zone, good to go with nice fresh oil. So now we can get mowing. Good?
I guess. You can't do that
Come on.
that long.
Go.
I can't even steer with you in my way. Okay.
As we've shown you before, this thing lays down a beautiful cut. A lot of leaves, fall's coming. It's finally cooling off a little bit. There it is, a little bit more of an in-depth look to the Yakta YXR710. That mower's awesome, the company appears to be awesome. Their warranty is second to none. Check them out. Thanks for watching Hard Working Man, guys, and have a great day.